sec, guys, while I am a little fiddle. Let's get this live on Facebook. So this is why I don't really say much for a few minutes. Just making sure that is about to go live. Oh, we're left off. Right, cool. Wicked. So I'm just going to quickly check for a moment just to see if I am definitely running on my phone, and then we'll get cracking. So just give me 1 sec, guys. I think we should be alright. She says, and then my phone crashes. So this is good stuff. Okay, we're just gonna wing it. Hopefully this is recording nice and well and people can see me, so I apologise. Yeah, we're on lift off now, we're fine. Excellent. So yes, so we're in a different place in the living room today. We're actually on the sofa because my legs go completely numb when I talk to you for an hour in Spanish, or Spanglish as we all say. So I'm actually using the sofa today, so you've got a little bit of a different view, so I hope you enjoy that. But welcome back to lesson 9. Apologies that we didn't do the lesson yesterday, but it was my dog's birthday and yeah, he takes priority, I'm afraid. So we're going to kind of keep going with what we were doing with like food and drink, but we're also going to learn a bit of grammar today. So this is stuff that gets a little technical. It's this first bit of grammar that we're going to do today isn't going to be horrendously difficult, but when we work on other tenses, it's going to get a little bit difficult. Just a pre-warning. So, as you know, as always, I always leave these in the front of my videos, so if you do need to refer back to them at all, then they are there. So last week we were working on telling the time in minutes and hours, and we briefly touched on some food vocabulary and being able to and drink as well, being able to say what we like to eat or drink. So we're going to kind of carry on with that, but I will recap just a little bit. So you've got this the minutes of the clock, and of course I should have put the hours in really as well, but I did not. But at least, oh no, I did. I apologise. No, I did. So these are the hours on the clock, and then of course you've got the minutes, or quarter past, half past, that sort of thing, or on the dot, en punto. So I am a little bit naughty for using the same graphic I used last week, but I thought it was just, you know, on the subject of food, and frankly that looks really good, doesn't it? So let's have a little chat about some traditional Spanish foods. So I will sort of touch on other cultures as well as we go through things, like maybe when we get a bit more vocabulary as well. But for this week I'm just going to focus on traditionally Spanish foods. These are foods that I've eaten, I know quite well, and yeah, although I don't unfortunately eat all of these now because I'm now vegetarian, I do miss jamón serrano. It's so good. Anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about these foods so you kind of know what they are. This is not an exclusive list, there's a lot more than this. But these are a few of the ones that I was rather fond of when I had that time in Spain. So croquetas de pollo, or basically chicken croquettes, they are super yummy. You usually see that in something like tapas, which I have included on this little list as well. Tapas is a really great way of socializing with your friends at a restaurant or a cafe, and it's something that the food is served in very small dishes, sort of yay size, maybe slightly bigger depending on how many sharing. And these are basically, it means little dishes where everyone's like having a sample of everything, and it's basically like finger food, but really good finger food. And it's not really what you would say like chicken nuggets and chips from McDonald's. No, it's a lot cooler than that. But there are different types of tapas as well. Croquetas de pollo is one of the most commonly liked ones that I've noticed from British people, but also one of my favourites from when I was there as well. And of course, occasionally you will see paella in tapas, but it's not so much. That's mainly, I've seen that mostly as a main course, and paella can come in different variations, but these are just a few just for like your reference really. Paella con carne, which is literally paella and meat, or paella with meat, which can consist of chorizo, pollo, or chicken, sorry, and well, you can include other meats in there as well if you want to, and often like vegetables and peppers, spice, garlic, and it is super yum. And paella is cooked in a very large, excuse me guys, in a circular pan, and at first it's kind of very I would say like watery, but as the paella begins to cook, the rice itself, the arroz, el arroz, as the rice itself will eventually absorb all that water, and the water is more sort of like what's it, almost like a stock. So you would make a stock to kind of go with it. So you would initially you'd fry the paella, and then you would add your vegetables, your meats and things, and eventually you would kind of add the stock to go with it, and then it absorbs all the flavours of all the different things that you've got in there, including the meats, the chorizo, which I think really brings out the flavour of paella the best, in my opinion. But then I'm not big on the seafood version. Sometimes you'll get fish, or pescadores, or pescados is another word. To be honest, I've not seen many fish variations, but I have seen a lot, and I mean a lot of like seafood variations. So you'll find like things like mussels in there, maybe bits of crab, prawns, calamari, or calamares if you're speaking Spanish as well. Paella Valenciana is actually something that you would see, well, it's traditional to Valencia and the province of Valenciana, but that one is more traditionally like a seafood based paella, which, I'm sorry, it's just not for me. And of course you do have the vegetarian options as well, but you would see also things like mushrooms or other bits and pieces in there as well. But if you do know of any other paellas out there, then do shout them, or pop them in the comments and let me know, because I'm always willing to try new things. I haven't had paella for years, thinking about it, because I became vegetarian a couple of years ago, and now I'm like, oh, I really miss that. Really good staple food, really easy to make once you get the hang of it, and you know, well, I will warn you, if you ever make it at home, less becomes more. You could literally have like 1 cup of paella and then it becomes huge, and you have so much food to kind of go round. So I often ended up making too much all the time, especially when I was living on my own. Yeah, it's nuts. So I had to end up freezing some, and so yeah, a little goes a long way with paella rice. Another tapas that you might see, but you might also see it as a side, is patatas bravas. This is potato, and it's then it depends how it comes. It depends on the chef or where you are as well. But it's usually in a tomatoey, spicy sort of sauce, and then it's covered with a bit of mayonnaise as well. Not really mayonnaise. I think it's like sour cream or something. It's sort of like a white sauce as well, and it kind of, the combination of the potatoes, the spices, the tomatoes, and then this called mayo or might have been sour cream actually. I apologise if I've got that slightly wrong. That kind of, I don't know, it's just amazing. And if you ever want to try tapas, patatas bravas is perfect, because it really is just awesome. But sometimes you'll also have the patatas and then they'll have the sauce dolloped on top. So I've seen it served in different ways in different parts of Spain, in the same province as Valencia, so it wasn't really that far apart, but it can be served differently depending on how somebody cooks it, basically. Jamon serrano is, well, serrano ham, so it's specific to Serrano, and this is like a dry cured ham. It is quite salty, and you can buy a joint of serrano ham, but they're big and they're a little bit more expensive naturally as well. But serrano ham is sliced very thinly, and then you can enjoy it as a bit like a tapas, or you can just eat it as is. Just a little tip, if you're really interested in sandwiches, it really tastes good with a bit of cheese and sandwich, like in a baguette, like a fresh baguette. And honestly, it's one of the most yummiest things I ever made. I'm not sure if it's even meant to go in the baguette, but it did go well with it, so who knows. Tapas, as I kind of briefly mentioned, it's basically little diddy dishes that everybody around the table will share, or not if you don't want to share, but it's something that it's more of a food for sharing kind of thing, and it's often cooked hot, or well, sometimes you have salad, sometimes you'll have different types of rice, sometimes it would be like a Mediterranean vegetable medley. There is a lot of seafood tapas. I'm not a fan of seafood. I'm sorry I've not mentioned it, but I really don't like seafood. Occasionally you'll have different types of queso, cheese, as well, different meats, like different ways of different chorizo. So you might have like the traditional chorizo, which is like paprika, garlicky kind of dry cured pork sausage kind of thing. Or you do get spicier versions as well, and also you get chorizo that has been made in Latin American countries as well, which they are different in their flavors, and try them. It's really, I recommend it. But tapas can be a variation of a lot of things, and it is a very, very, well, that's what the Spaniards are very famous for, is their tapas and their paella. And the other one is tortilla española, which doesn't quite translate to Spanish omelette, but it basically is. But the Spanish omelette is cooked very differently to how we would in the UK. Instead of having it quite thin, it's very thick, and it can be filled with different vegetables, meat, garlic, mushrooms. It basically looks like a cake when it comes. It's quite thick. It's quite yummy as well. So they are a few of my favourite things to eat in Spain. Well, one of the other things is just bread and oil and balsamic vinegar, which is, I could eat that all day. So, what we're going to do is go through a few phrases of going into a restaurant, because I know we haven't come out of lockdown yet, but if you do venture to Spain at some point, maybe later in the year, or maybe next year, because I think most of us will need a holiday by this point. But of course, if lockdown still continues for some time, then obviously you might not need this just yet. But bearing it in mind for when you do go to a Spanish-speaking country, you've got the vocabulary and the phrases to order yourself some food. So, normally when you're greeted in a fancy restaurant in Spain, they would greet you with buenos dias, buenos tardes, good morning or good afternoon. Occasionally you might get buenos noches, but generally that's when you're leaving. And then what you might say is tengo una reserva para dos, or it could be you've got 6 of you, para seis, para siete, 20, 20 if you really want to. But tengo una reserva para dos, or you have a reservation for 2. And then when you order, there's lots of different ways to order. So you could say, for example, if it's a pair of you having the same food, although do people do that? I mean, if you really both really like that particular dish, maybe. But you've got nos gustaría tomar pollo asado. We would like to have the grilled chicken. Or you could say, me gustaría tomar, you would like to have batatas bravas, or paella valenciana, for example. So you obviously would just replace the pollo asado with whatever you want to eat. So if you say we would say nos gustaría. And if we say just me, I would like, me gustaría, if you order separately. Excuse me. And of course, I think most of us, when we're in a restaurant, we're eating our food, we're really enjoying it, but they always come when you're in the middle of a mouthful and you're chewing and they say, is everything good for you? Well, here's the reply that you could actually say in return if you do have someone in a waiter or server in Spain that comes up to you and asks, how is everything? And then you would say, estaba todo buenísimo. Everything was very good, or maybe it's not very good, and you could probably say something a bit sadder, but generally it's all good. So or you could say, yeah, estaba todo malo, 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 malo. It was all very terrible. And of course, when you're in Spain, you're going to probably need to ask, could I have the bill, please? Or could I have the check, please? Me podrías traer la cuenta, por favor? Please bring me the bill. Could you bring me the bill? And of course, when you leave, we all know what we say when we leave. Adios, hasta luego. You know, you've got different ways of saying goodbye, so, you know. Well, that's a formal way of doing this, because not all restaurants are formal, but it's handy to have that vocabulary as well, isn't it? And that's meant to say informal, and it's on this is a seafood and meat paella picture. Excuse me, I've got a really itchy nose, my hay fever is quite bad. Okay, so we've got mussels, we've got some prawns in there, I think. I don't really I'm rubbish with seafood, so I apologise. We've got mussels, prawns, and some chorizo in there as well, and we've got peas. That is something I've noticed is very common in paella dishes, is peas and peppers. And it really works. It's really lovely. I will have to give you guys a recipe on this, actually, I think, because if you haven't tried it, if you're trying cooking at the moment, then it'll probably be something worth having a go at. So, some more greetings. So if we're going into a restaurant and it's a more informal setting, obviously we're not going to be quite so fancy, are we? We're going to say, oh, me gustaría, la 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 la. Well, I mean, to be honest, I would always want to say that, because I don't know. It might be a British thing that we are reasonably polite whenever we ask for any food, whether we're in a McDonald's or a high-class restaurant. We're always a little bit like very polite. Excuse me a moment. Okay, so when we go into a restaurant on a formal basis, we could say oiga, oye, and that's basically just saying hi, how are you, or kind of like it's like we say hi or you alright, which is a very British thing to say. Hey, I mean, it's basically like a local greeting. And you can literally just say una mesa para dos, a table for two. That's it. And you can say puedo ver la carta. Puedo ver la carta. Can I see the menu? You can also say menu if you really want to as well, or menu. And of course, I obviously have to be aware of this. Some of you might be vegetarian, you might be halal. I will get back to you on the kosher descriptive adjective, because I'm not sure. It might even be kosher, but obviously I don't want to say that it definitely is in case I get that wrong. But in case you are about and you have an allergy or what have you, I will get back to you on those as well, actually, because that might be handy for you guys to know. So if you're watching this on YouTube later, then check out the group. I will get back to different ways of kind of saying to someone that you've got allergies or you've got specific dietary needs, so that you're not completely sort of, unable to eat. So, you could say, tienes comida vegetariana, vegetariana, or halal, you have any vegetarian or halal food? That's one option that you could say. And another way, see, this is very unusual. We would never really say in English, give me this, or can you give me this? But in Spanish, this kind of, this is the way they talk. So this is very, it's not seen as impolite, it's just direct. But it's not, they're not so worried about the over formality in sort of everyday Spain. So you could say, dame un solomillo de ternera, porfa, or por favor, if you really want to be extra polite. Can you give me a beef sirloin? Sirloin? Oh my god, that's so embarrassing. Sirloin. Sorry guys. Another thing you could say is me traes algunos churros cuando puedas. So you could say, can you give me the churros when you can, or you could replace churros with chicken, or algunas bebidas cuando puedas. So you could say drinks, bebidas. And something you think are looking good. Someone's been to KFC. Whoever wrote this has been to KFC. So está muy bien, or está para chuparse los dedos. It's really good, finger licking good, or you could just say está muy bien. That's more than adequate. You don't finger licking good. Only really say that if you're eating maybe tapas with your fingers, or you're in a KFC. Let's try it, see if it works. La cuenta, or la cuenta is the bill. That's another way of saying la cuenta. Cuando puedas. Cuando puedas is literally when you can. So you can also say that with other ways, like if you're asking someone for something else, like when you can you bring me that thing, whatever it is. Or you could say, me das la cuenta, can you give me the bill? And then when we leave, we say hasta luego, adios, hasta pronto, hasta próxima. Whatever way you want to say goodbye. We did touch on greetings, saying hello and goodbye in the very early weeks, actually, when we've been doing this. It's been a long while, and resources are slowly getting better. I've noticed there are less mistakes when other people write them. But so other ways that you could maybe sort of talk to your server in Spain, you could say me gusta comer, I like to eat whatever. But mainly when you're describing what you like to eat to somebody else, like me gusta comer pollo, me gusta. So we did this last week as well, didn't we? So you could say me gusta comer champiñones if you really want. Mushrooms, ugh, don't. Me gusta comer queso, me gusta comer pizza, pollo, etc. This is more recapping on last week's session. And you can also say me gusta beber. So I like to drink. So you could say cerveza for beer, or you could say sidra for cider. You could say refresco, which is fizzy drinks, sorry, or soft drinks. And of course you've got bebidas gaseosas, which sounds really crazy. Bebidas gaseosas is literally like gassy drinks, which basically means like a carbonated drink, so a fizzy drink or a soda. I did notice when I was in Valencia, you could actually get away with saying I want something. Or you could say, if you wanted to be a bit more polite, you can also say I would like as well. So quiero is when you want something. So you could say quiero un pizza, quiero el pollo, for example. You want the chicken. In some parts of the Spanish-speaking world, that's okay. Some is not. So if in doubt, go for the more formal versions, what we've just been through before. Or you can also say querería, which is like the conditional version of quiero. This is something I'm not going to want you to worry about just yet, because when we get into different tenses, this is when stuff gets hard. But quiero is present tense, just saying I want, so it's something that you're doing right now. Or querería is literally I would like, or I would want, basically. Or you can also say, if you're trying to order for someone else, bear with me one moment, sorry guys. My allergies are really making me choke a lot at the moment, so it's a little bit wheezy. So you can also say, for example, if you've got someone with you, you could say él quiere, which is he wants, or ella quiere, or ella quiere, or nos queremos, we want the chicken, for example. So there's so many different ways, but we will come back to this a lot more in depth, because as we learn more about different verbs, grammar, future, sort of discussing things in the future, discussing things in the past, this will be a lot easier to expand on. But I don't want to overload you too much too soon, because it's only been the 9th session of this. I had probably been doing Spanish for a couple of months. I mean, I know it has been a couple of months, but I was doing like 8 hours a week of it when I was learning Spanish. So yeah, but by all means, if you want to read up on your Spanish and improve at home by yourself, then by all means, great. I encourage it. It's, the practice is always great. There's some more vocabulary, expanding on other things that you might find in a restaurant or a cafe. You've got comer, which is to eat, beber, which is the verb for to drink. Tomar is to take, or it's like to have, but not like tener. It's not quite like tener, where you have, or I have something. It's more to get something, to take it, sort of thing. Para llevar is to say to take out or to take away. Para llevar. Camarero or camarera is the waiter or waitress or server. Cerdo is pork. Ternera is beef. Muy poco hecho, which is if you guys like your steak, this is the important one you're needing to pay attention to. So if you want ternera, beef, steak, for example, muy poco hecho is rare. Al punto, which you might remember the punto, but it's basically just, I think it's like basically saying just right. The direct translation makes no sense, so it's literally at the point, and it's like, but a lot of people go for like medium rare. Personally, I like medium rare to rare, or when I used to eat meat, that is. Muy hecho is well done. So hecho is like, it's like done. Yeah, it's literally like from the verb hacer. But hecho is basically well done, or where rare is on the other end of that spectrum, muy poco hecho, just a little bit done. So it's just, and I'm assuming that's rare. I have no idea. I've never actually cooked a steak. I've only eaten ones that have been cooked for me. La cuenta, the bill. Vaso de agua. Vaso de agua literally means glass of water, but in Spain. Colloquially, when you do say vaso de agua, you're asking for tap water, which is generally free in most restaurants. I mean, why you would charge for that is beyond me, but you can actually ask for a jug of water or vaso de agua, and they'll bring water to you as well, because some people do like to have water while they're eating, as well as the beer, wine, or whatever. I've never quite understood that, but each to their own. But vaso de agua, you could say also botella de agua. I think it's, botella de agua. which is like a bottled water. Yeah, if you really wanted to. And this is the full view of 3 pages that look very similar to this, where I've just basically given you where I've got it from, so you can actually see the full document. So this is where we're going to get a little bit tough. Doesn't look so tough at the moment, and if I'm honest, it's not too bad, but this is just the beginning, ladies and gents. So we have, in Spanish, we have 3 types of verbs. We have, I'm just going to skip through. I should have done this the other way round. Hold on a minute, guys, sorry. So we've got AR verbs, we have ER verbs, and we have IR verbs. So it'd be ere verb, ere verb, and ere verbs. And I'm only really talking about regular verbs, and ironically, regular verbs aren't necessarily quite as regular as irregular verbs, which makes no sense, but don't worry. Regular verbs basically means they follow this pattern and this rule that I'm showing you here. I'm going to do one at a time because it is quite, this I think is a little bit too busy, but this is just a chart just to show you, and it's something maybe you can print out later, so that whenever you're trying to conjugate verbs, if you're writing sentences, you've got that to kind of go, that's how to do it. And also, if I'm honest, it's a little bit like maths. You remove something and then you add something on, depending on what person we're talking about. But we traditionally in Spanish we have AR, ER and IR verbs, but there are hundreds of exceptions to those rules, and those are the ones that obviously we would work on more together. The verbs that we know already from, for example, ir, estar, ser, those 3 verbs, they are actually counted as irregular verbs, and they are always conjugated a little differently, even though they might look like one of the regular verbs of AR, ER, or IR endings. They like to be a bit fussier. So I'm going to start off with the AR verbs, and we're doing this in the present tense, so as if we're talking about right here, right now. So when you have AR verbs, you've got say the full word in front. So let's say hablar, which is to talk, and I'll show you in a moment some other verbs so you can kind of roughly get what I'm talking about here. So when we have yo for I, we would remove AR from that verb. So we take the AR away and we would put any of these one of these endings that corresponds to the person we're talking about. So for example, when we use hablar, we would remove AR and we would add O for me, if I'm talking about myself. So hablo. If we are talking about you or tú, we would remove AR and add AS or as. So it would be tú hablas. If we're using he, she, or usted, so él, ella, or usted, usamos, oh no, sorry, I shouldn't do that. Sorry, I was going to speak just in Spanish then, sorry guys. We would then use a. So we would remove AR and add a, although technically we're just removing the R, but just for the sake of this sort of like understanding that you have to remove something to add something, it would then change to a. When we go to nosotros or nosotras, we would remove AR and add in amos. For vosotros, we would use ais. So remember the accent on the A that I just slightly messed up there. So it'd be vosotros habláis. You can hear what I mean there. And nosotros hablamos. Nosotros hablamos. And then for they or you, so ellos hablan, ellas hablan, ustedes hablan. So you would remove AR, add AN. or an to make that conjugation. So glad the English language isn't quite as complicated, sort of. So, I will run through some of these with you just to kind of recap, because it is a little wow at first, but hell, it's not too bad. So hopefully you can read those. So, for example, let's pick up the first word that we've got, ayudar, to help. So, remember the word ayudar? So I'm just going to run through all the conjugations, all the 6 versions of how we would do that in the present tense. So remember, I'm removing AR and replacing with one of these endings. So at first we have ayudó, tú ayudas, él ayuda, nosotros ayudamos, vosotros ayudáis, ellos ayudan. You see what I've done there? So I'm going to do another example. For example, let's see. What should we do? Why is it when you get offered this, what do you choose? I'm just going to be really boring and just go for the next one, which is bailar. I'm not going to go through all 40 odd. I promise I won't do that to you. So bailar, to dance. So it'll be yo bailo, tú bailas, él baila, nosotros bailamos. You may know the song by Enrique Iglesias. It literally means we dance. Bailamos. Vosotros bailáis. So you, very formally, plural. Hang on, is that the right one? No, you informal plural. In certain parts of the Spanish-speaking world, bailáis. And of course, bailan. Ellos bailan. For they. Okay. If you get stuck on this, just send me a message and we will work through it together. It's not a problem. It is sometimes a little bit complicated, and for vosotros, it's used occasionally in Spain in addition to ustedes. But mostly in Latin America you would see just usted or ustedes. To be honest, I prefer it that way. It's a little bit easier, but it's always helpful to know, because if you ever come across this in Spain or any other parts of the Spanish speaking world, then you at least know what that means or where it comes from. And then we have IR verbs, which I'm going to just do the present tense for the moment, because I don't want to get too complex with this. So it's quite similar, if I'm honest with you. It's just the ending is just ever so slightly different. So we remove the ER off of that verb, and for yo we would add o, tú we would add es, él, ella, o usted we would use e, nosotros or nosotras we would use hemos, vosotros or vosotras we use eis, ellos, ellas o ustedes we would use en. Right? Let's do some examples. So I am going to go with aprender, to learn, to start with, and then I will pick something else in a moment. Aprender. So that is a regular verb, the ER verb. So we remove the ER, aprend, and then we need to know what ones we're going to use. So I'm going to go through this for you. So it'll be yo aprendo, tú aprendes, él aprende, nosotros aprendemos, vosotros aprendéis, ellos aprenden, or ustedes o ellas. Right? And then I'm going to give you another one. Let's go a little bit harder. Now I do wish I did write these down for you as well, because I'm going to be a little bit naughty and give you a bit of a harder one to do. So I'm going to use creer, which is to believe, which is a little bit more like, oh. Now, it's really just as simple. So we are removing the last ER at the end. So creer is what we've got after that. So we would say yo creo, tú crees, él cree, nosotros creemos, vosotros creéis, ellos creen. So it's just exactly the same, but I thought I'd kind of like, oh, because when I first saw that, I literally like, no, I can't do that. But you literally, same rules apply. You remove that ER, and you just have a double E in there, and it's okay. It's not that bad. So there's some others here as well. I know I didn't go over the other verb table with you, but it's just a few more ER verbs just to practice at home with the tables there. So you've got aprender, beber, which is to drink, comer, which is to eat, cometer, comprender. Comprender is it is to understand, but there is, when I was in Spain, we used at the end entender, which I will write down for you later, which is another way of saying that you understand. So we would say entiendo, to say like I understand, but that's one that I will bring up a bit later. We have correr, which is to run, creer, which we just did, to believe, deber, which is to owe, or you might hear this in Spanish, or in Spain or Latin America maybe, I'm not sure, but homework is deberes, which means literally like to should do, you must do, to owe, that sort of thing. And homework is one of those things that when we were at school, you have to do it or you get detention. It's kind of like that, but it's just deberes, which is the word that they use in schools and colleges in Spain. So yeah, deberes. Esconder, to hide. Although I don't know how that would be a common, maybe it is, I don't know. Now, IR verbs, or IR verbs. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a nice fancy table for this one. This was the best I could get. So, IR verbs, it's very similar actually to the ER verbs. As you can probably tell, it's very similar. There's just a couple of differences which need to be, you do need to be aware of, because it makes it just something to memorize and practice basically. So very similarly, for yo, we would, when we remove the IR verb, we remove IR of whatever verb we are using from the IR verb, regular verbs, and we would add yo, we would use o. For tú, it will be es, él, ella, o usted, it's e. Nosotros, sorry guys, nosotros, we would use imos, not hemos, but it's very similar, isn't it, in the conjugation. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes, we would use en. So literally, like one of those is different from the ER verb table. So that's one you've kind of got to keep your eye out for as well. And apologies that vosotros is not on this table, but I believe it's the same. Yeah, it is the same as the other one. So let's have a look what we've got here. So lots of these IR verbs. Let's go with vivir, to live. That's a nice and easy one, and then we'll pick a slightly, well, to be honest, they're not going to be that difficult, these ones. We'll start with vivir, and then we'll choose another one, and we will conjugate that as well for the present tense. So vivir, so we would remove that last IR, and we would say yo vivo, tú vives, él, ella o usted vive, nosotros vivimos, sorry, not vivemos, vivimos. See, I made the mistake with that I there. Nosotros vivirmos. There you go, vivimos. Ellos, ellas, or ustedes would be viven. Right? And we'll pick another one. Let's have a look. What have we got? Let's have escribir, which is just to the left of it, which is to write. Escribir, not escribir, penny. So we would say yo escribo, tú escribes, él o ella escribe, nosotros escribimos, ellos, ellas, and ustedes escriben. Alright? Sweet. I have no idea if you're replying to me as I'm talking here, so I apologise if I'm asking things and then you're replying and I'm not responding. It's not personal, I just can't see anything but this slideshow that I'm going through with you. So that's the IR verbs. So we have abrir, which is to open, descubrir, to discover, permitir, to permit, discutir, to discuss, recibir, to receive, looks quite similar to the word receive as well, asistir, a, so you would always have asistir, a, followed by a, so you would conjugate the IR of that verb and as normal, but you would asistir a someone, something. Escribir, which we just did, to write. Subir, to climb or to go up, like going up some stairs. Cubrir, to cover. Existir, to exist. Sufrir, to suffer. Decidir, to decide. Omitir, to omit. Unir, this one looks like it might be a conjugation difficulty as well, actually. Uno, unes, unemos. Actually, it's not that bad, actually, thinking about it. Unir, describir, vivir, to live, sorry. Describir is to describe, I didn't even tell you that, although you can see. Compartir is to share. And I have included this table because it's a bit of a pain to kind of flick back between the different ones on the larger, like when they're have the whole page to themselves. So I will post this in my group because this is a resource that I thought, yeah, I know what, this is going to be really handy. It's one of those things that you could print out, or you could write yourself your own little tables so that you know that you can memorize them, or when you're looking at writing sentences, you can, if you're using the present tense, that is, you can then refer back to this and you know what you're going to be saying. Just be aware that there are always exceptions to these rules, because that's language for you, and it happens in every single language that I've studied so far. They always have an exception, and you think there's not that many, but there really are many exceptions as well. Like receive, I before E but not before, or something like that. I can't remember what it is. It's the phrase that's in English that I before E except for receive, which is EI, I think. Yeah. But believe it or not, there's tons of exceptions to that rule as well. So we have our own exceptions to the rule. Spanish do, Japanese do, French, so on. So you've got, these are the verb endings here that we've got. These are mainly for regular verbs. There are some slight differences with the irregular ones, which we have covered a couple of those already, but we will cover more as time goes on. And we will work on the other tenses as well, which, I'm not going to lie, is when it is going to get a little harder and a little more confusing. And I remember really sucking at that. I'm still not the best at it, but I'm not bad. I'm alright. I managed to get my degree out of it, so it's okay. Hasta próxima. So it's quite a short one from me today, guys. But there's a lot of information jam-packed in this video, really. I'm throwing a lot of grammar at you, but I also feel like we need to kind of do a bit of fun and a bit of grammar, because otherwise we've got to have a bit of fun and a bit of learning at the same time. Otherwise, I'm not really teaching you anything. And that's what's more important to me, is that I'm sharing what I know, and then you guys at least learn something new and you enjoy it. So that's why I'm going to try and kind of merge those two more together as time goes on and when I get a bit more creative. But I do need to obviously explain some of the rules of these different bits of grammar, because you're not just going to get them like that all the time. Some people, I really struggled with it. I have dyslexia, and yeah, and I did mess up a lot, because when you have those rules in front of you and then you don't realise that this new verb that you've just learned is an irregular verb and not a regular verb. There's a lot of irregulars in that sentence. You then, yeah. So it's quite hard work, but practice. That's the key thing that you need to do. If you are enjoying this course and you're learning at home, great. What I would always recommend is, if you do want extra practice, is try and set a little bit of time each day if you can, or a few times a week, where you listen to some Spanish being spoken, even with English subtitles if you want to, just to hear how it's spoken, because at the end of the day, I'm not a native speaker. This is technically my third language, or actually I would say it's maybe even my fourth, because Italian I technically started learning first, but we ignore that and say it was French. Anyway, so I'm not a native speaker. I will make a lot more mistakes than what a native speaker would make. I'm very rusty. It's been a very long time since I graduated from uni, but I'm still very passionate about this language, and I still love it very much. It's very cool. The culture that the experience of the culture in Spain was phenomenal. Very different. Like I say, they're not quite as big on the formality unless it's really, really formal. So you can literally just say to a waiter, like, I want this, and it's fine. You can actually, in Valencia, just tell someone to move, and that's fine. Don't even have to say excuse me. You can just say pasa, I need to get through, sort of thing. Wait, so it's a phrase that is basically telling someone to move, but that's quite normal, and it's not considered as impolite. Whereas if you do that in England or parts of the UK, mostly UK, some parts of the other English-speaking countries as well, you can't really get away with saying that, which we are a lot more formal in our language, in our mannerisms, sometimes for the most part. But yeah, it's how would I put this? Sometimes, like, the culture of how people are in, especially Spain, is people are a lot more forward. They don't like beating things around the bush that much. They just want to be direct, and that there's more of a passion for that, really, and there's a lot more passion in their words. Yeah, they don't mess about. They're very direct with what they want, and their love songs are very metaphorical. Yeah. So yeah, what I would say when you're at home, if you're, well, I'm imagining most of you are at home anyway if you're not working. Practice, listen to some Spanish songs as well, Spanish speaking, or by Spanish speakers rather. So things like, I'm going to say Shakira, sorry, Shakira. If what other music could I recommend you? Calle 13. I'll write some of these down for you guys actually in the group because I think that would really help you. Calle 13 is quite a good one. They're Latin American based, I think. I'm not sure exactly where. You have Juanes. He did a very popular song that some people over here will know, La Camisa Negra, which is the black shirt, basically. Alejandro Sanz, sorry. He's definitely like a power ballad kind of guy. Well, sort of. Yeah, he's quite good. My friend Javier Gonzalez Rojas, he is a musician and very, very good. I have posted a few links to his videos in the group already. He's a very, very talented musician, and I really hope, I do wish him well because he deserves it. He's very, very good at what he does. He can play so much, and it makes me so jealous. Listen to TV shows, listen to podcasts. There are some podcasts on, podcast places where you can actually get the news read to you, but in slow Spanish. So not sort of everyday Spanish where it's a lot faster than what we're doing here. It's a lot slower, so you can kind of pick out the words a bit better. Not everything sort of smoothly running into each other and very fast. Listen to podcasts like that. Watch music videos or your favourite cartoons. Some of them you can switch the audio into a different language. Just pop some subtitles on if you're not that confident yet. Sometimes, for extra practice, I put the subtitles on in Spanish as well. And that does help because you can see the words. And you can go, oh, I know that word. Oh, that's how they pronounce it. And yeah, it's quite handy. But I don't always do that because usually other people are in the room with me and they don't speak a word of Spanish. And although I'm always happy to translate, it's it will get quite bothersome. But if just for like practice on your own at home, do it. Practice conversations. Pretend you're the waiter and whoever you're living with, they're the customer. Have a little, use some of those sentences and make yourself like a little script or something. Go to last week's session and grab some food ideas off of there. Have a chat with your friends and family, or even with me over Facebook if you really want to. Practice makes perfect, and the more you do it, the better you get. Yeah, that's basically it. But so I will see you guys next time for week 10. What? Because we've been in lockdown way too long, man. But I will see you guys next week for week 10. I have no idea what we're doing yet. However, wherever you're watching this from, whether it's from Facebook on live replay or on YouTube or maybe Instagram if I start uploading it there too, I'm not sure. But wherever you are, let me know if there's something that you want me to talk about in next week's session or future sessions. If I can do it, I will do it. The only thing I will just pre-warn you guys, because I love you very much, but I will not be doing a swear word one yet. And I'd only be doing that after a certain time on live, or it'll be pre-recorded and it will have to be age verified. So, because at the end of the day, I want this available to everybody of all ages and abilities, as best as I can, at least. So I don't really want to go teaching you swear words. Sorry. I know some of you are a bit cheeky and a few people have asked me. But that's not something I'm going to be doing just yet. And it would be something that I'd have to restrict on places like YouTube, so sorry. But there are things that we can do. I am thinking about getting some poetry on a session in future, or even maybe songs, but I'm not that confident singing. I'm not horrendous as a singer, but I don't really like the sound of my own voice, so I don't want to listen back to it to see how bad it was. So anyway, I'm going to go, and I will bid you a farewell and hasta próxima, and we will chat next week. So if there's some things that you want to start learning about, vocabulary-wise or phrases, send me some comments below, because that always helps with me. We're sort of like in kind of creating these, because I have no idea what I'm doing, because I'm not actually a teacher. I'm just someone who's bored in lockdown who fancies teaching Spanish, and hopefully I haven't done too badly at it, but anyway, we'll see. So farewell and bye bye for now, everybody, and I hope you have a good week. I was about to say weekend, but I've realised it's Monday still. Anyway, I'm gonna love and leave you, and yep, have a good evening or morning or wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye. I've just realised I need to stop recording before I actually go off live. Bye, everybody that is actually watching this as a recording. I have said bye to you a second time. So see you later, guys, and I will see you next week. Bye.